Hi, my name's David Vann, and I went from a broken foot, a broken truck, and a one-bedroom apartment and no money to closing deals in 15 states, retiring my wife, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Welcome to our podcast. Again, my name is Jack Bosch. I'm a real estate investor, land flipper, entrepreneur, husband, dad, and in this podcast, we're talking about all things success, real estate, and many, many other things. So today's guest is David Vann. David Vann is a master in sales, right? He is a land flipper, he's a real estate investor, also an entrepreneur. But I think his number one skill is he is the best closer I have ever found, right? I've ever met. So David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, thanks for letting me be here. This is a lot of fun. We were actually talking on a ride up here about some of this stuff, and I'm excited because I feel like today we're going to be talking about some stuff that nobody else is talking about. I don't know why, but I'm so excited about talking about it today because I'm so mad about this is stuff that people need to be working on in their business right now and they're not. So I'm excited.
Awesome. So David, give us a little bit background about you first. So what's your, give us a little bit, where you're from, what do you do, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So I come from a working class family in South Florida. And my father told me to just stay out of jail. My mom said, why do you want to do anything with your life? Why can't you just get a regular job? So I never really had goals starting out. I really didn't. I just had a job. And it wasn't until I started believing in myself and seeing other people do it around me that I actually started to take risk with myself. And that's where my growth kind of jumped through the roof. And I bet on myself early, and it paid off. And I'm here, and I'm proud to say it. Yeah.
All right, awesome. So what do you do right now? How do you make your living these days?
So I'm a land flipper. So that means that I get land under contract for cheap, and I sell it to somebody for a little bit less than anybody else. And that's pretty much what I do.
More than you bought it for?
Yeah, more than I bought it for. And I do this virtually. I've done it in 15 states, and I live in Dallas, Texas, and I'm focused pretty much on Arizona and Texas. There's so much land to go around. I actually sold a land property one time in Hawaii to a guy in Pennsylvania. He had a nail gun on one hand and his phone on the other, and he was on a ladder in Pennsylvania, and I closed him on the phone, one call, one close, because I put that urgency on him. And I'm so excited. We're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Absolutely. Hey, that's great. So yes. And you also work with us in our coaching business, right? You're a land expert in our coaching business. So you help students find their way through their own land success, right? So, and figure out which strategy they should pursue and which path they should pursue. So with that, you deal with people a lot, right? You work with people a lot. And so give us let's jump right into it from a sales point of view. What do you think people do wrong the most time concerning sales?
Well, I feel like people are turning the conversation way too much into a business transaction way too early in the conversation. Most times, people need to know you, like you, and trust you, to do business with you, to buy something from you, to even pick up the phone from you. And if you don't have that kind of tonality, you don't have that kind of presence and confidence when you speak to somebody, within the very first 5 seconds, when I train my team on how to close and how to get deals and sell deals, I'm training in that very first 5 seconds is the most important part of the conversation. And believe it or not, you're building trust right out of the gate. And so that's what I really focus on, is just making it a human conversation. We can talk business here in a minute, but I just wanted to check in with you, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk business here in a second. And but I feel like people that make mistakes, what they do is they go straight to the end. Okay. They're going straight to home base. And way too early, way too fast, and the seller or the buyer is not ready for that. And it creates a conflict. It creates a friction. That trust wall is still so high. You got to beat that trust wall down a little bit before you go for the close. And people that's not trained, they don't have experience, they're not working with a coach, they don't have any kind of network or other experiences like that. They don't understand it. There is a trust wall that you have to climb over, and that's really what I focus on really early on. And that's what I teach too, and that's what I help, and that's what I feel like we're successful in.
All right. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that, because that's powerful. So how does it look like? Like I get on a call with you and you want to sell me a piece of land.
Yeah.
And let's say I'm looking for a piece of land. I submitted my information or whatever it is. It might be whatever. You can abstract that to anything, right? Yeah. You walk into a car dealership and you're the car sales guys. Like obviously you're not, but you walk into a store and then you have a solution and there's a sales representative. So how do you open a conversation such that they don't turn off right away, which I think is happening with a lot of people. Like I get phone calls from people all day long saying like, hey, you own some houses here. Are you interested in selling?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, first of all, no, but thank you for coming straight to the point so I can shut you off right away, right? Mm-hmm. But they really wanted to accomplish the opposite, right? Yeah. So how do you enter that call?
Well, first of all, there's basically 3 steps. There's setting the agenda, there's qualifying, and then there's closing, okay? And they have to go in that order, number 1. Number 2, I always like to visualize the whole time. So I'm a big time visualization guy. And I visualize 2 people in a canoe in a river, okay? If you're rowing this way and I'm rowing this way, we're not gonna get anywhere very fast. And if you imagine a waterfall at the end and you're looking at that waterfall the whole time, you're thinking, man, I gotta hurry up and get this thing going, you know? And I feel like people that don't have experience or training or education, they feel like that waterfall's 2 feet away. So I think number 1, when you pick up the phone, whether it's a buyer or a seller, you gotta announce yourself and why you called. Hey, listen, my name's David. We haven't talked yet, but I just wanted to introduce myself real quick because I'll be working with you on the property. Or you're trying to just announce yourself to build a little bit of trust on why you're calling in the first place. And then we can start getting into qualifying. Is this a good fit, et cetera, et cetera. Ask questions, get answers. Most people that don't have experience, they're not asking questions. So my biggest thing that I would want to take away from this is what questions are you asking and why are you asking them? If you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. If you're not getting the right answers, you're not going to get the right results. So set the agenda, qualify, then close. And you know what? Hey, listen, if it takes 5 minutes, it takes 5 minutes. If it takes 45 minutes, it took 45 minutes, but that 45 minutes can change your life forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So asking questions. I know. I see that. I know a lot of salespeople or inexperienced salespeople or people wanting to get into sales. They make the mistake of just vomiting all kinds of stuff about the property, about the solution, about the product over onto their things. Like, this is so great because, instead of asking the prospect a bunch of questions of what they're looking for. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I also really believe in, if you're thinking about sales, I want you to stop using the word sales and use the word relationship. When you start having that frame of mind when you're talking to somebody, it becomes so much more fluid, okay? People have been building relationships their whole lives, right? Whether you're a kid, you're at school, it's your first day on the job, you know, you're looking for a date, okay? There's a mechanism to this. There's a process to this of building a relationship. And if you're just focused on getting the sale, that anxiety will bleed through, I promise you. And, you know, most times when I actually explain a lot of things, I explain it as more of like a relationship dynamic. So like you're sitting at a bar, the girl next to you, you really want to ask her out, but you just don't want to lean over and say, will you go out with me? So there's all these other things that you can say to fill in the gaps. And that's your job, whether you're buying or selling in there, is to fill in the gaps, to ask the right questions. And you're not going to know what those questions are most times until you get on the phone with them and hear, are they distracted? Are they even paying attention? What is their goal? Did they have questions for you? So I would say open it up a little bit, quit trying to use scripts, you know, really trying to focus on some highlights of the conversation and let that canoe new, once you guys are kind of rowing in the right direction, everything's going to start going in the right direction. You're going to feel a lot more confident and better about the conversation really fast.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you're building a nice relationship. You're having a good chat. You're laughing together. You're chatting together. And then at some point of time, you're like, hey, so how you transition the call then into the next phase?
Well, that's very easy. Most times you're asking qualifying questions like, what got you interested? Okay. And they're going to give you answers. And all of a sudden, what happens then, something very magical happens. They start asking questions to you. And that's really what you want. Okay. You want to start out, I start out as like a friend. And then eventually something really cool starts to happen in the sales process where all of a sudden you're not so much a friend anymore. You're a doctor and they're asking you questions and you're giving them answers. And because you built the trust with them, because you built the relationship with them, they want to take that and run. So, most times in sales, you're focused on making sure, are they the decision maker in the first place? And so if they're not the decision maker in the first place, that's the easiest thing to get out of the way. But then price and fit is pretty easy to hit. But honestly, Jack, most times they ask me for the close. And I feel like that is one of the biggest mistakes closers make in the industry is they're trying to close before that lead is ready to be closed. So most times the lead asks me to close. They're like, how do I pay for this thing? Or, okay, send me the contract, So
how do we get started?
How do we get started? What's next? Walk me through the process. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of mastery. So now, how did you come up with that? How did you learn that?
Well, a lot of phone calls, Jack. A lot of phone calls. I will say I don't know.
You get a lot of times where you did not do it that way, and then you're like, crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I taken a lot of sales training, but what I realized too, and you might be driving around listening to this right now, and you might be feeling like, well, I have a style, I have a personality. I don't want to change my personality. Just like you get married, you don't want to change your personality for your wife or your husband. You want to find some common ground, okay? So what I would challenge you for, number one, is you're going to have to start looking into yourself. I don't know any salesperson that doesn't understand their strategy in themselves, okay? It's not by accident. So what I would challenge you is look at yourself and say, what am I good at? Am I good at starting relationships? Am I good at ending relationships? Am I good at talking, right? You got to find some talking points, a story, and they call it a sales story in the industry. And my sales story is I'm the little guy. I'm interested. I just want to talk to you. I just want to get some details. It's just, I actually say this probably almost every time. It's just me, my laptop, and my dog, okay? And that disarms, and I'm imagining this trust wall keep going down and down and down and down and down. Then eventually they're going to jump over it and say, come on, let's go. I'm ready.
Very nice. So it's not always about the features of the property, the features of the program, the features of the thing, right?
Absolutely not. I would say maybe 90% of the time it's not. And 90% of the time, it's the conversation. It's the relationship that I build with them. Absolutely.
Right. Very cool. So listen, guys, when you hear that, so stop focusing on knowing. I mean, you got to know every detail of the product you're selling, of course, because if that comes up, you want to be able to present that with certainty and confidence and all the details. But focus on the relationship because people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And so I love that because it's I would almost call it relationship selling, right?
Yeah. I consider myself very strong in that. Like I want to be an ambassador for my products. I want to say, hey, listen, I use this. I love this, right? And this is why I do it too, right? And that's why you see a lot of those infomercials. They're hitting those key points and those keywords. And I like to use the word easy 7 times. If I'm talking to the seller, I want to say the word buy 7 times. Okay. If I'm talking to the buyer, I want to use the word purchase 7 times. So there are some key words that I'm trying to attack the subconscious fluidly, very creatively, very softly. But I just don't want to go in there and just start slashing and cutting off arms and everything like that. That's not a conversation. That's not a relationship. That's just beating somebody up. And nobody's really happy doing that. The buyer, the seller, you's not going to be happy with that, and it's not sustainable.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Let's go on to one other area, and that is so. Again, you learned it through some sales training, trial and error, and you said like by knowing yourself. Actually, it's the same area. Let's just go a little deeper there. By knowing yourself. So, what does it mean that? Does everyone have to do it the way you say this right now, or like if somebody's like a little bit more of the talker and extrovert, exuberant kind of person, somebody else is a little bit more the introvert, calmer, slower speaking kind of thing. How do they adjust their approach based on that? Because what I hear say is like, no, you don't have to become everyone like David Vann, right? Everyone can develop their own style, but can they still do those things?
Yeah. So a lot of people use the keyword confidence. That comes up a lot in sales training, in the industry. Confidence is, name one thing that you're really good at. You don't need anybody to tell you that you're good at. You know you're good at. For me, it's my mom's chicken pot pie. When I think about my mom's chicken pot pie, I love that. I could literally eat it for 2 weeks. There's nothing better than my mom's chicken pot pie. And when I tell it to my mom, she puts her chest out and she's like, oh yeah, it's my chicken pot pie. Nobody can tell my mom how to cook that chicken pot pie. Okay. So that confidence she's having when she's mixing that chicken pot pie in the kitchen is 100,000%. So if I was training my mom on how to close and how to sell and all this stuff, I would tell my mother, you are the best in the world at making chicken pot pie. I want you to have that concept in your head. Act like you're making chicken pot pie while you're on the call with them. Have that kind of emotion in your heart. So whatever it is, whether you're a tech guy, whether you're a social media influencer, whether you're a landscaper, right? When landscapers talk to the client, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to put this palm tree over here. We're going to put this palm tree over here. Well, that's confidence. Okay. And so when you're dealing with a buyer or seller, people say you have to have confidence because people, like, we are animals. We are looking for little cues. Is this person lying to me or not? And when you have confidence, it's an indicator that they're telling the truth. Okay. Right. So you have to obviously know your product. You have to absolutely speak and stand up straight, stick your chest out, right? And that's why I stand up and I walk all day long, probably about 14 hours a day. But that's why I like to do it, because I want the person that I'm talking to, that I'm working with on a deal, I want them to know, like, and trust me, and really be I really want this to be an experience for them. And I want them to get off that call and make that decision on the call. And I don't want them to call me back 5 minutes later and say, hey, listen, I changed my mind. Right. And that's because they don't have confidence anymore in the deal, or myself. Yeah.
Right. They feel like they've been strong-armed into it. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So now to wrap this up, what can somebody out there, can you come up with, let's say, 1, 2, 3, as many as you want, tips of what somebody can do starting today to improve their sales game? Like whether they're selling land, like many of our coaching students do. Like we have lots of people that have never sold anything in their life, and they're now looking to sell land, and they don't know how to go about it. So when they're in our coaching, they have sessions on that, and how to have this conversation with the buyer and the seller, and how to ask those right questions that make them want to close on it. But another one, everyone is out there. Let's give some value to everyone out there that just wants to get better in sales. What are kind of a couple of things they can start doing today that will make them better in sales?
Yeah. Well, number one, I would definitely say that when I talked earlier about, you have to know yourself, is I did a lot of training looking at myself in the mirror. Okay. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can tell the truth to yourself, and yourself is looking right back at you, then your confidence is going to build. So if you're struggling with confidence, I would suggest doing some mirror work and maybe run through your keywords, some of your lines, your opening pitches and stuff like that. Make it really quick. But the first thing I would actually do is you're going to have to introduce yourself properly on the call. When you pick up the phone, you're talking to a buyer or seller, you gotta have the right tonality. You don't want to act like an infomercial person. You don't want to do that. So, oh, okay, hi, this is David. Oh my God, I'm gonna hang up on that person. I will literally hang up on you. Okay. So, very first thing you want to do is stand up straight. Okay, stick your chest out. Get the Bluetooth out of your ear. Put the phone up to your ear and say, "Hey, Joe, this is David. Okay, announce yourself with some presence. Okay, and then go on to why you called them in the first place, whatever your industry is. Okay, and then the second thing is, don't be afraid to ask them questions on why this is a good fit for them. A lot of salespeople are trying to convince you something. I'm convincing you this is a good fit. I'm convincing you. Ask them. So, Jack, why do you think this is a good property for you? Why is this a good situation for you? Why did you call me today? Walk me through that. Okay. Right. I want to build a relationship there. And then lastly, don't always try to ask the closing questions. Most times, if you're smart, you're good, you're slow, and you slow it down enough, they're going to ask the closing questions to you. It's going to be a much more fluid conversation. It's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot funner, and you're going to make a lot more money.
All right. So right there is multiple tips. I like the one about like announcing yourself with confidence. So I did a call. We're buying a multifamily property right now, and I needed to call the title agent to get the last numbers of the account number so I could wire the funds. So he just sent me one email, but I called him and I was like, "Hey, this is Jack Bosch." And he's like, and I stay quiet. Like basically I realized I told him right now that I'm calling him with a full expectation that he knows who I am. Right? And he's like, there was like an awkward silence for a moment. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, Jack, Jess, how are you?" Right?
Yeah.
Because and I realized, wow, I could have used that in a sales conversation. Yeah. Just like, "Hey, this is Jack Bosch. This is Jack Bosch." And then, and they're like, it takes them off guard because a bad salesperson is going to be like, "Hey, this is Jim Smith, and I'm calling you in regards of da 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 da. And how are you today? And then how, do you have good water in your house?" Yeah. And they're like, "No, leave me alone. My water's great." Yeah. So, but by just saying the name and being quiet, they're like, "Okay, this guy must be somebody I should supposed to know here." Yeah. And then I could hear his kind of wheels turning, and then he's like, "Oh, it must be that guy." And then he put two and two together. So yeah, particularly in a sales conversation that you have announced that you have set an appointment, I think that could probably work because they already know David Vann is calling him. They're right. So, "Hey, this is David Vann." Like, "Oh yeah, I'm waiting for your call." Great. And you set it up like
most times that's how it happens. Slow it down, guys. The absolute worst thing that salespeople make in the industry, no matter what you're selling cars, you're selling lampshades, you're selling solar panels. It doesn't matter. Slow it down. Make it a personal conversation. Talk to the person. They want to have conversation too, okay? Not everybody wants to talk to a sales guy, believe it or not, right? But I would love to talk to Jack Bosch, the husband. I would love to talk to Patrick, my friend, right? So that's what I would say, number one and number two. Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So with that said, let's wrap this up, David. So let's see. Let's give you the last word here. What do you want to tell somebody that either wants to get into sale, wants to get, or is trying to sell something, is struggling? Like a last piece of word before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I would say, obviously, number one, no matter what you want to do in sales, whether you just want to get started or you want to be better or you want to make more money, there has to be a goal to it. And so if you don't feel confident about your goals, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and really digest what your goals are in the first place. Because a lot of times when you're talking to somebody, the transaction is the conversation. That's what's going on in sales. The transaction is the conversation. And if you are coming across desperate, you're coming across too hungry, you're coming across too forceful, guess what? You're going to have a problem. So you have to know yourself, what your goals are, and you got to be confident with that. And that's exactly why I feel like I'm very successful in that, because I know what my goals are, I know what I'm good at, and I feel like I want to connect with the person first. So slow it down, connect with the person, know your goals, and take it from there. Slow it down, guys.
All right, so that wraps up our podcast right now. So thank you very much, David, for being here with us. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you want to follow David on social media, Instagram or something, it's David Vann Invest. So check him out, follow him. He puts out some great tips. And also, if you're interested in land flipping, of course, or anything like that, go below. Click on the links there, comment on there, like us, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next episode.